everybody, and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about The Punisher Issue 1, written by Benjamin Percy, with art by Jose Luis Suarez, inks by Oren Jr., colors by Frank Diamata, and letters by Cory Petit. Good old Uncle Frank is back after a string of short miniseries and red band books, and now he's back in New York and free from Kingpin's mind control chip in his brain. Frank is still unsure of who he is and what he is as he travels the city trying to figure that out, going out to parts of the city that call to him and parts that he seemingly remembers but doesn't really. In one of these places, a thug jumps him, demanding all his money. The man doesn't realize until he's up close to him that he is confronted by the Punisher, and Frank opens his coat, showing off his impressive arsenal that he's crammed into his leather duster. The thug runs off, and soon Frank is overcome by a pain in his head, as while he had the mind control chip in his brain carved out, he's still just a regular old human man, and the effects and trauma of the chip being carved out have taken its toll, making him fall unconscious onto the ground. Man, what an opening for Frank's new ongoing, showing us a new Frank who's trying to find his old self. He's trying to search the city for who he is. Ben Percy making it clear that he's going to treat Frank like an actual human person with limits is great, since it always feels like with the Punisher, sometimes it becomes a little bit too superhero-y fantasy, like he's doing things that very clearly would just kill a normal guy. But I really like the runs where he just gets the shit beaten out of him and he's just a mess of a man, and it looks like Percy is going to continue that trend here, which I'm all for. As Frank lays unconscious, the city gets on with its day and reports on various events of Benjamin Percy's Punisher Red Band book, catching up those who didn't get around to reading it, though it doesn't really go into depth, just that Punisher fucked a lot of shit up around New York. Through this carnage wrought by Frank, Tombstone is also arrested, taken to Rikers Island to await trial. The reporter covering it for the local news knows that the hunt continues for the mysterious gun-toting man who committed all of this carnage, hinting at the police suspect this might be the return of the Punisher. As a mysterious man with a human flesh mask listens to the news, Frank manages to return to his warehouse with the battle bus, going into the cell where he is keeping Microchip, the man he blames for the chip in his head. Microchip has been in the cell for a very long time, and upon seeing Frank, he pleads with him, knowing that they have a history, and he saved Frank on more than one occasion. Frank is cold and uncaring, slamming the door closed after looking at the man. So this is at this point where we should point out that Frank hasn't said a single word in this entire book so far, and I like that. He's a man of action. His actions speak louder than his words, and Percy uses that to great advantage. He's letting the artist basically tell the story for him. Also, Frank is a grimy mess of a man, as during this part, he's still covered in the blood from when he face planted in the street earlier. So kudos for Julio Luis Suarez for delivering some truly gross out grimy artwork, and this is just the start of it. There's stuff later on in the book that gets even grosser. Frank tries to piece together his memories by field stripping his guns and cleaning them, filling his mind with violence and death, but nothing seems to be working. Over in Rikers, Tombstone is told by his uncaring guard that he has a visitor, and he is taken to see what is apparently his lawyer, who pays off the guard for letting him see his client after hours. Tombstone doesn't recognize the man, and something is very clearly wrong with this lawyer, as Tombstone tells him to stop fucking about and tell him why he's really there. So the lawyer begins ripping off his skin, peeling his face and hands off to reveal himself to be Jigsaw. So this is what I was saying about the book getting grosser. This is really gross, and it's pretty hardcore for a book that is not a red band book at all. We get to see him just basically just peel this face off and peel his hands off, and it's just all just like gross rotting flesh, and it's great. I guess it doesn't get the red band because it's technically not blood, like it's not colored the same color as blood, it's just like viscera, and it's like that darker color, so maybe that's how they get around it, but it's pretty hardcore for a book that is not a red band book. I also like to point out that Tombstone's character, I love that Suarez's art just makes him look like Frankenstein. He's just a big Frankenstein guy in a prison jumpsuit. Looks great. Tombstone wants to kill Jigsaw for what he's done, but the villain says that he got lucky since Tombstone being put in jail for the rest of his life saved him from being killed. He gives Tombstone a contract telling him to sign it since it will give Jigsaw the ownership of all of Tombstone's businesses and properties, and of course money. Tombstone knows he's never going to do that, but Jigsaw knows that if he can get this close to Tombstone's lawyer, he can get even closer to his family, intending on carving them up just like he will with New York. I've been out of Punisher comics for a while, but man, I love that Jigsaw is back and seemingly doing not only just weird serial killer stuff like, skinning lawyers and betraying crime bosses, but looks like he's making a play for something bigger, because a lot of writers don't really know what to do with Jigsaw. They usually have him as being like the heavy that Frank goes up against every now and then, but he's never really gone for like the kingpin status. He's never really wanted that. And I like that is seemingly what Percy is doing with the character now. He's decided he's sick of just playing second fiddle to people like Tombstone and wants to actually take what is his. Frank Mimo heads out into the city again, killing drug dealers, muggers, and abusers, going from one to another to another. And interestingly, Frank isn't doing this because he wants to. It's all some sort of compulsory order he has in his mind, some sort of muscle memory, and he doesn't know why he's exactly doing it. As he continues listening to his police scanner for the next unlucky criminal scum he'll blow away, he comes across one, stepping out of the battle bus and blowing away a clown-themed criminal who was trying to knock over a convenience store. He gives the owner back the things the man was trying to steal, and the owner, scared out of his mind, asks what the Punisher wants, and for the first time in the book, Frank speaks, asking how much a chocolate bar is. The terrified clerk says he can just have it for free, just wanting Frank to leave. Frank leaves the robber to be dealt with by the cops and drives off, but again the pain of his wound in his head overcomes him, causing him to pass out and crash the van into a building. At the WNEX building, reporter Madeline Phipps, who was the reporter from the beginning of the issue, fights with her boss, who doesn't think that people give a crap about street-level crime when they have worlds filled with aliens, hell portals, and gods who want to eat their planet. Stories about drug deals and gang shootings barely make the news in the world with the Avengers. People don't want to hear about it. But Madeline thinks that she's just being punished for the story she did on that one city councilman. But she fully believes the Punisher is back in town and people deserve to know. The editor-in-chief doesn't care, putting her on coverage of a puppy parade. As far as I know, Madeline is not a established character. I think she's a new character for this run, but she's fitting the pretty tropey role here, reporter who's got the big scoop and, the boss won't allow her to do it, so she goes out on her own to investigate it, and she's going to come into a run-in with Frank, and he's going to have to save her, or like they're going to team up or something. I can see where this is going, and I'm into it. I really like it. Speaking of Frank, he's a bit better again and returns to see Microchip, offering him the chocolate bar he got from the grocery store. Microchip thinks it's a gun in the dim light, but soon realizes what it is, grabbing the food and scarfing it down, as Frank tells him that something is wrong with his brain, and Microchip is going to fix it. Elsewhere, Jigsaw monologues to himself about how he was always seen as some low-level hitman, but not this time, since he knows that he can do better and has it all worked out, especially thanks to Kingpin and now Tombstone being out of commission. Taking a marker, he marks off pictures of Kingpin, Tombstone, and then the Punisher, knowing everyone is looking at the small pieces, but he's now looking at the big picture, and the one thing he wasn't planning on is Frank Castle. So if the Punisher is back, he's going to flush him out and he's going to finish him off before becoming the new Kingpin of New York City. As I said before, this is a really interesting way to take Jigsaw, because usually he is the heavy, the second fiddle to all of these other characters. So I like that Percy is making him more of a bigger threat. I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do with Jigsaw and what he has planned for him, because I imagine he's going to bring in some other villains. I know Percy vaguely mentioned maybe he's going to start canonizing stuff from the Punisher Max books, so like Marnucci, Barracuda, all of those type of characters, really interesting characters that I'm intrigued to see if they do get canonized, how they'll be changed, because, in the Max books, those characters are pretty hardcore. So I'm intrigued, especially Barracuda, who's, quite racist and a very, very violent person. So I'm intrigued to see like what he would be like in the 616 universe and how he would work. But I'm really intrigued. It's a great first issue. I really enjoyed it. And I'm intrigued to see what Percy has in store for the Punisher and for Jigsaw, which is something I never thought I would say. The Punisher issue 1 was a great return to form for Frank Castle after several miniseries and false starts. Benjamin Percy has a clear story in mind, not just for Frank, but also the villain Jigsaw. And and he's evolving the character into something more than just a scarred secondary lackey character, which I really appreciate. As first issues go, this laid the groundwork for the coming story arc really well. It set all these characters out on their stories very well and got to the point very quickly. I'm intrigued to see what Jigsaw has in store for Frank in the coming issues and what type of carnage both of them will get up to. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.